I'm going to show you how to do these stitches. This is the cluster stitch, and I have used it in a few of the designs that I have coming out shortly. And so this is just a video to help you to work a cluster stitch if you haven't done one before. I've heard them be called a lot of things. I've heard them called cluster stitches, I've heard them called wraps, bubble wraps, I've heard them called loads of things. But I call them a cluster stitch. This is a 3-stitch cluster and this is a 4-stitch cluster. So basically this one's worked over 3 stitches and this one's worked over 4. So it's worked on the knit side. So you just knit along to where you want your cluster to be. So I'm going to knit along the row to where I want my cluster. So say I want it here. So I'm going to work my cluster over the next 3 stitches. So first of all, you knit those 3 stitches. So you knit 1, 2, 3. So it's these 3. Then you take a tool. So you can use a cable needle, you can use a DPN. I always seem to have to hand extra needle tips and I always seem to lose my cable needles. I don't use cable needles that often. I tend to cable without a needle, so they just aren't always in my bag, whereas I do nearly always have a needle, another interchangeable needle tip, so they work just as well. So you just go back to your work and you're going to work on these 3 stitches here. You slip those 3 stitches onto your extra needle or your needle tip or whatever, and then grab your working yarn. So they're sat on here and they've already been worked. You take your working yarn and you wrap it around the front of your work and to the back. So I'm going to do that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then just securing that with your finger here at the back, you're just going to slip those stitches back onto your working needle, onto your right hand needle, and you can take away. And then here you are left with your wraps, and then you take your working yarn and continue to knit along. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me about this stitch before and ask me about knitting it too loose, too tight. Now, I have seen a lot of people talk about it and a lot of people talk about knitting it too loose. If you knit it too loose, you will end up with a massive gaping hole here where that excess yarn bunches up. It is easy to just neaten it up by pulling it at the back to neaten it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is an overlap stitch, so the neatness of the stitch with the overlapping yarns across all depends on how neatly you do it. So this one here has been done really, really neatly. This one's been done in more of a rush. I actually don't mind it either way, doesn't bother me. But if you do it too loose, you will end up with a massive hole here. If you do it too tight, these will bunch together so much that it will create a little hole on each side, and it will look very odd in your finished work. However, I think this is an okay tension, even though they are bunched together. It's not so much that you can't wiggle them apart. They're not really, really tight together. So that was a 3-stitch cluster because we have worked it over the 3 stitches. A 4-stitch cluster is exactly the same, except you're going to work it over 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've just knit the 4 stitches that I want to use. I'll take my extra needle, extra needle or whatever I have that I want to use, and I will pick it up 1, 2, 3, 4. It's holding here at the back of my work. I'll take my working yarn and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I will just slip them back onto here. Get rid of that extra needle, pick up my working yarn again, and carry on knitting. So there we go, that is a 4-stitch cluster. So that's both of those stitches. So in quite a lot, well, in the patterns that I am now putting out especially, I will write this as 3SC and this as 4SC. So that is the 3-stitch cluster and the 4-stitch cluster. And that is how you do them. And that's what they look like from the reverse side. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message on Ravelry. I am the Lonely Knitter 2. On Instagram, I am the Lonely Knitter. Or comment below this video and I'll get back to you. Thanks, bye.